What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kenahan, and this week is playoff week. The Washington Commanders face off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this Sunday at 8 p.m. on Sunday Night Football. It's going to be a fun matchup of the first wild card playoff game for the Washington Commanders since their 2020 showdown against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when Tom Brady was the quarterback and Washington had Taylor Heineke and Washington won the division with a 7-9 record. It was definitely a different time period for the the team was the Washington football team back then as well. So, it was a different time period for Washington fans for sure. But now Washington goes into this matchup with the most hope that they've had in decades, really. In decades. It's been the best season for the Washington Commanders since that 1991 season when they won the Super Bowl. The Commanders enter the playoffs as the 6th seed. They'll play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are the 3 seed. Before we jump into the preview for the wildcard game, because I got a lot to get into there. But first, I do want to talk about some announcements that were made this week for the Washington Commanders. The All-Pro teams were announced today. And then also Kliff Kingsbury has been multiple teams have requested interviews for Commanders offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury to be their head coach. We'll start with the All-Pros. Terry McLaurin, second-team All-Pro as a wide receiver. Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner making second-team All-Pro as a linebacker. And how about Austin Ekeler making second-team All-Pro as a kick returner? So Ekeler getting onto the team as a special teamer. Terry McLaurin getting onto second-team All-Pro. I left him off of my own All-Pro, but he was really a borderline between him and Brian Thomas. They went with Terry McLaurin. I'm okay with it. Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner, both of them making the second team All-Pro as linebackers. I was more sure that Bobby Wagner was going to make it than Frankie Louvu, especially towards the end of the season as Louvu's production has kind of drifted off a little bit, and Bobby Wagner has definitely stepped up in the last few weeks. So I didn't know if the voters were going to have more recency bias and put just Bobby Wagner on, but both Wagner and Louvu made it onto second team All-Pro, which is awesome to see. This is the most All-Pros Washington has had since that 1991 season when they had 9 All-Pros. This year they have 4. I mean, if you look at Washington's stretch from the year 2000 to 2019, the Commanders did not have a single All-Pro player. In 2020, they had 1 All-Pro player with Brandon Scherf making it. And then from 2021 to 2023, they had 1 All-Pro player with Jeremy Reeves making it as a special teamer 3 years in a row. So now 4 All-Pros in one season. That is like uncharted territory here. The most I've ever seen for the Washington Commanders. So it is awesome to see. It is awesome to see the progression that this team has taken over the last few kind of months, really, and over the last couple of years when Josh Harris took over as owner, Adam Peters was hired, Dan Quinn was hired, Jayden Daniels drafted, the free agents, all of that. It's awesome to see the progression that we've seen out of this team from when Harris first bought the team to now. So another thing to mention, 3 out of 4 of those players came here in free agency last offseason. This shows the amount of work that Adam Peters has done with this team and reconstructing this roster that really this was depleted of talent by the end of the Ron Rivera era because Rivera could never draft correctly. And then the free agency at the times, Washington wasn't willing to spend on big name free agents. Now here in this one, they spent on big name free agents, but they spent correctly. Like they didn't go out and sign like a washed Josh Norman to a massive deal. They went out there and signed a young Frankie Louvu to a long-term deal. They signed a Bobby Wagner, a huge mentor, future Hall of Famer, to a 1-year deal. Austin Ekeler is on a 2-year deal. I mean, these are more short-term contracts that Washington can get out of, so there's less risk. But also, these are high-level players that are making an impact from day one. Bobby Wagner, both on and off the field. Frankie Louvu, you've seen the culture that kind of this team is built around, and Louvu kind of leading this team out onto the field and stuff. And then Ekeler as well, even through the injuries, he's been a great change of pace back in that backfield to complement Brian Robinson's strengths and weaknesses. So it has been fun to see. Shout out Adam Peters. He completely changed this linebacker room from Cody Barton and David Mayo to now 2 All-Pro players, which is insane. I know Barton's kind of thriving right now in Denver, but when he was in Washington, it was not good. It was the worst linebacker room in the National Football League. We had David Mayo, Cody Barton, Kaliki Hudson, and that was really it. I mean, it's crazy how much more Dan Quinn has kind of invested into this linebacker position. We've talked about it before. Rivera, former linebacker, it was kind of ironic that he just never paid attention and never made any changes to that linebacker room that really struggled when he first took over. And I mean, in year one, Dan Quinn and Adam Peters have come in and gotten 2 All-Pro linebackers onto this team. Wagner will have to wait and see as he's an upcoming free agent if he wants to return, if he's going to hang up the cleats after this year. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, he returns for one more season. And then for Luvu, on that 3-year deal, 3 years, like maybe 30, 40 million, it was a steal. It was a steal for Washington. So, and then, of course, Terry McLaurin making it onto this team. I mean, of course, the guy has had a career year. You could make the argument for Brian Thomas, but it's fun to see Terry on this team. So good stuff there. Other news, this is probably more so on the not so great side. In some ways, great for Kingsbury, but Kliff Kingsbury has been requested to interview for the New Orleans Saints and Chicago Bears head coaching positions. Kingsbury talked about and mentioned these interviews when he was asked about it during his press conference on Thursday. Basically said not really focused on it right now. He's looking ahead at Tampa. He's not paying attention to it. This is why coaches hire agents and they have a team that kind of looks over these head coaching interviews and all of that for themselves. So Kingsbury doesn't really have to think about it while he is preparing to face this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team on Sunday night. So that is the stuff on Kingsbury. And then real quick here before we get into the actual game plan and all that, looking at the injury reports, Washington all clear, all good to go. John Bates was in a non-contact jersey on Friday. He is good to go. Same with who am I forgetting? Same with someone else as well that I am forgetting currently. But pretty much everyone's good to go. Everyone is good to go. A lot of players got a lot of rest days because of the more so kind of just resting, because at this stage, like everybody's hurting. Everybody's hurting at this stage. But yeah, so Lattimore is going to be good to go, making his second career start for the Washington Commanders. You've got Farrell good to go. He was a DNP. Ertz was resting. He was a DNP for Wednesday and Thursday. He's good to go. Tyler Biadasz was limited this week. He's good to go. So these are massive names for Washington being able to return against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after not being able to play last week against Dallas. So big stuff from Washington. On Tampa Bay's side, McMillan will be good to go. Some other big names. Antoine Winfield is probably going to be good to go as well. Tyke Smith is good to go. Tristan Wirfs will most likely be good to go as well. And Mike Evans, he was a DNP on Thursday, but more so for vet rest day for Mike Evans. So that is the preview stuff. Now let's jump into the actual game itself, because this is going to be a very fun game. I expect a lot of scoring on both sides, especially since these two teams are very similar with how they have performed so far this season. Tampa Bay enters the game, of course, as the NFC South champions. The 3 seed Washington will travel to Tampa Bay for a rematch in Tampa after their Week 1 showdown back in September. Washington will play this team again as the 6th seed, which they clinched with the win over Dallas last week. So we'll start with Washington's offense going up against Tampa's defense, because it's going to be an interesting one. Tampa, we've known this. They love to stack the box. Todd Bowles, that's one of his kind of key traits, key things that he loves to do. He loves to stack the box. He loves to put as many players as he can in the box and stop the run at all costs. That's pretty much what he's known for. Over 40% of the time this season, Tampa Bay has had 8 or more defenders in the box, which is just insane. By far, the number 1 team in doing so. So Tampa loves to stack the box, which could in some ways be beneficial for Washington. I know Washington is known for their run game. They want to run the football. You got Jayden, you got B-Rob, but recently the run game has kind of struggled. Brian Robinson has not ran for more than 50 yards in a couple of weeks. Eckler's kind of been injured in and out, hasn't really done much beyond Jayden Daniels running the ball on his own. This run game has struggled pretty mightily. I know Jayden ran for over 100 against Atlanta, and then he was the leading rusher again last week against Dallas. But I'm fine with it. I'm fine with if they're gonna load the box, you can attack the edges, you can attack the sidelines. And that is what Jayden has been able to do, and that's what Jayden has been able to succeed at the most is taking advantage of these guys loading the box. So I'm kind of fine with it, more so because the run game has really struggled with the offensive line kind of being injured and whatnot. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I think more so Washington will be able to take advantage of that secondary that Tampa Bay has because they're going to put so many players in the box and try and stop the run. I think Washington and Jayden Daniels could take advantage. We've seen the Jayden Daniels deep ball this season. We've seen him hit some pretty crazy ones, but we've also seen him overshoot some passes to Terry McLaurin or Lamine Zaccheaus. And that's just going to have to be more not like more accurate downfield, which he has been for the most part this season. But there's going to be moments where Terry's going to beat a guy deep or Alani's going to beat a guy deep. Jayden's going to have to lay it in the bucket because if he doesn't, you're not going to get that many opportunities against defense that loves to blitz, loves to rush the passer. Jayden will be under pressure for the majority of this game. He was pressured 12 times and took 2 sacks in the week 1 matchup. So the offensive line did a pretty solid job compared to what I was expecting them to do in week 1. But still, Jayden will be under pressure a ton again. His pressure to sack ratio is like 22%. So it's pretty high. But Jayden has been able to deliver under pressure this season. He's been a top 10 quarterback when under pressure this season. So he's just going to have to deliver. And yeah, that's pretty much it. He's going to have to take advantage of a secondary that has pretty much been filled with injuries beyond Zion McCollum and Antoine Winfield, who's out there. Bryce Hall is on injured reserve. There's so many guys in that secondary for Tampa that are out for this game. So Washington will have to take advantage, and that's how they're going to win offensively, I think, is taking the deep shots downfield because I know it's Lamine Zaccheaus. I know it's I don't know who else really there. De'Ami Brown and Luke McCaffrey. But those guys will have to deliver. Someone will have to step up. You'll have Terry out there. Terry's going to win some matches, but you're still hoping for more out of your 2 through 5 guys or 2 through 4 guys who are going to get a lot of playing time without Noah Brown out there. And KJ Osborne, I think, has pretty much been nothing since he's come in. So hopefully we can get a good game out of De'Ami Brown or Luke McCaffrey. I know we've been saying it for years now, it feels like, but hopefully we can get that Luke McCaffrey breakout game. But yeah, that is where things currently stand offensively for Washington. Basically, they're going to be under pressure. If the offensive line can hold up and give James some time for these deep routes to develop, I think this Washington offense has a good chance to put up a lot of points against this Tampa defense. I trust Kliff. I trust his game plan. You just can't be scared. Just don't be throwing the screens, the run screen, first, second, third down type stuff that he sometimes does. So as long as he doesn't do that and he calls a good game, I think this Washington offense will have a lot of success against this Tampa defense. So let's flip sides of the ball. Go to the Buccaneers offense against the Commanders defense. You look at this and you immediately look at Marshawn Lattimore against Mike Evans, John Cena against The Rock, LeBron against MJ. Nothing matches up against Marshawn Lattimore against Mike Evans. The rivalry, the heated rivalry between those two for years has been something else to watch. But beyond Lattimore being back, and that's going to help the secondary for sure, I still think this is going to be a pretty tough matchup for this Washington defense. They're going to need to pressure Baker Mayfield. Baker has not been horrible under pressure this season, but he's worse under pressure than he is when he's not pressured. And Baker has a higher pressure to sack ratio or pressure to sack percentage than Jayden Daniels. Baker's is at around 25%. So 1 in every 4 times you pressure Baker, he's taking a negative play. or it's probably higher because of incompletions and whatnot, but he's taking the sack. And Washington can take advantage of this. I know the pressure recently has not been great on some of these quarterbacks, but hopefully Washington's pass rush is able to get home. It'll be very tough because this is one of the best offensive lines in the entire league. You've got Cody Mock at right guard. You've got Tristan Wirfs out there. You've got some other guys that have just been awesome for this Tampa team this season. And that's pretty much been the reason why Baker's had so much success is because Baker's rarely pressured. He's only been pressured, I believe, on 160 dropbacks or so, which is like less than a fifth, I believe, of his total dropbacks this season. So, Tampa's going to want to attack vertically. I think that could definitely put a lot of stress on some of these safeties, but I trust a guy like Jeremy Chin to go out there and make some plays. Mike Sanders still, I know there's been those ups that we've seen out of him like during the Cowboys game. There's some major plays, but also there's been some down moments for Mike Sanders still, especially on some bigger plays down the field. So Sanders still will definitely need some help. Hopefully he can have a pretty good game in this one. And yeah, so the secondary will definitely be under a lot of pressure. The linebackers, in my opinion, will have to. They're gonna have to do their sideline to sideline, being able to fly sideline to sideline, make some tackles on the outside because the screen percentage that Baker's had this season is pretty high. They love running screens to Jalen McMillan, Bucky Irving out of the backfield, Rashad White. So there's a lot of playmakers on this offense for Tampa Bay. And Washington's going to have to make some big tackles or else big plays can happen. And you look at these linebackers, both of them just got second team All Pro. So they should have a lot of success and they should be playing well against this Tampa Bay team. But they'll definitely need to step up and make some big time tackles in this one. In terms of the run game, not that worried about it against Washington's pretty bad run defense. I think it's more so going to be the passing game that could kill Washington in this one. But overall, it's going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be a tough matchup. But if Marshawn Lattimore can take out Mike Evans from this game, and Washington will only have to worry about Jalen McMillan and Chris Godwin, that is good. That is good, I think. But still, I'm still a little bit worried. Center still and Igbenogany against Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan. McMillan, the former third-round pick out of Washington, has had a crazy year for Tampa Bay, especially recently. Has had some pretty big touchdowns for them. So, not a guy to overlook in this game, Jalen McMillan. So, that is that is my thoughts on this Commanders defense against this Tampa offense. Ultimately, if Lattimore can do his thing, if this defense can create a couple turnovers, because Baker Mayfield will give them a few opportunities to create those turnovers. It's been something that Washington has really struggled with in the last few weeks and pretty much this season. I was hoping with Dan Quinn coming in as the head coach and Joe Witt as the defensive coordinator, this team was going to be able to create more turnovers and more big-time plays, which we have not seen a lot of. Now, I know the secondary did not get a lot of help, and even with trading for Lattimore's only played one game. So there's still a lot of things that this defense can improve on. But Baker Mayfield, he's got one of the highest turnover-worthy play rates this season. He's got 25 turnover-worthy plays. If Washington can take advantage of that and pick up a couple turnovers, this could really turn the tide, especially in a game that I predict to be a shootout. A lot of points to be scored in this one. So a couple turnovers would be huge for this Washington team and would give more leeway to that offense and to make mistakes as well. As, again, if this game gets off, a couple touchdowns from Baker Mayfield and Baker starts cooking early, things could get ugly defensively for Washington. So it is important for this Washington defense to maybe get one turnover or two. And I know we haven't been able to in the last few weeks, but if Washington is able to, that'd be huge against Baker, because Baker will give you those chances. He'll give you a couple meatballs down the middle of the field, and Washington was just going to need to take advantage. You cannot have a dropped interception in this game. I know it's kind of any game, really, but you cannot have a dropped interception in this one. So, but yeah, overall, this Washington team should put up a fight against Tampa Bay. I mean, Tampa comes in as 3-point favorites, but I expect this game to be very close. The numbers tell me one way to go. My gut is telling me a different way to go, and you can call me a homer because I'm wearing the sweatshirt, wearing the hat. Got this is all Commanders podcast. I'm going Commanders 33, Buccaneers 30, and in a close one. I just think there's something special with this Washington offense, especially with who's under center right now. I think Jayden's going to make a few plays and cement himself as one of the greatest rookie quarterback seasons of all time. Not sure how much farther Washington will go after this game, but I expect I think Washington will win this one. It'll be close against the Tampa team. I'd be very surprised if Washington's offense comes out and just puts up like a couple touchdowns and that's it. So Washington 33, Buccaneers 30 in a shootout. But yeah, I think this Washington special season will continue. 12-5 in the playoffs as a 6th seed is very impressive. And I think it'll continue after this week. So that'll do it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. The next pod will be on Monday, breaking down Washington's playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Win or lose, well, hopefully it's a win, but win or lose, Monday morning, we will be here on Keeping Up with the Commanders to break it all down. So that'll do it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys next one. Peace.